Good day, everybody. Tracy Brown here. It's been a couple days since I did a video, but again, I don't want to be overwhelming. I want time for you all to be able to take these in, pull them towards you, take them in, digest them, and be in action. I'll be honest, because we're always encouraging our clients to find one little action step they can take, and so I'm encouraging you all, we've got to do the same. To continue to move our businesses forward and our own practices forward, and to be able to practice what we preach, to be honest. I mean, we don't really ever stop growing either, so excuse the background. You all know I'm still working on a class, so it's going to stay messy probably for the next 2 or 3 months. I just have to pretend like it's not there because I would like the floor not covered, but it's going to be that way for a while. Anyway, so I want to share with you, something somewhat vulnerable, but I think I'm sharing because I think it's going to be for the good of everybody, so that's why I'm going to share it. All right, so I was doing, let me see here, I don't know how many weeks ago it was. So I'm going to share not too many details from the client situation, just because she's very, very private, but it relates to me maybe more than her, so that's why I want to share it. All right, so I have a client who has very, very complex, trauma issues and kind of a long-standing anorexia pattern going. And also, she's also sober from alcohol. I want to say 4 years. I'm not sure the number, something like that. But anyway, why I thought all that's significant, she's done a lot of work over her life. And she came to me very, like, I'm done with this, I'm over it. She's worked with lots of therapists. She's done lots of CBT. She's worked with other dietitians and even non-diet dietitians. And so she's come to me a couple months ago with wanting the somatic piece to things, to do something kind of different. And we've been doing that. But what's been shown up in our work is as much as she's like, I'm talking like over it, so frustrated because I don't give people diagnoses, and none of us do here. So I don't claim to have called her this, but she said her OCD. And so it's really interesting that she claims that more than she does the anorexia and the other stuff. Why that's important, we'll talk about in a minute. And give the background of the story so you can understand like my role and what I had to come around through in this. So anyway, she's a client who, honestly, she's a very, very strong woman, and really hyper competent, in spite of the fact that she hardly leaves her place where she lives, and has a very limited amount of food, and really doesn't eat enough to like be fully vital in her body and to feel more embodied. And she knows that all of that is the point. She knows how hard it is to want to be down and in her body because there's so much there. There's so much trapped pockets of charge in her body from her history that it's just not a place she wants to be. So I hope that you all recognize that when you have clients that, like, as much as they desperately want to, they eat more or not binge, there's a reason why, even with all the information, reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, there's sometimes a reason why it's just too excruciating to be in their bodies. And so it's almost like if you do the traditional, you got to eat more food, or let's like work on ways to eat less. They can do some of that at some point, but there's always going to be a place where it's like the wall is up. You're not going to get past that wall. You're not going to, no matter how much science you give them, or even how much they want to change everything, they might feel like they just can't locate it. They can't go the next step. And that's where our work has been. What's happening is that, we've been moving very, very slow to make more space with all the obsessive compulsive things of labels and dates. She's got a lot of rules around eating and preparation and what's safe and what's not to eat, even though an expiration date might be in 10 years. She might see that and doubt it if she's in a triggered, like this fight or flight moment. And so she's not going to be able to eat in that moment. And I think that's what's so frustrating for her, because her window of tolerance is so small. So her frustration's been building and she's got a good trauma therapist. It's honestly, we've been very difficult for that process for her, which is, I think, made made her frustration higher with the food, because there's kind of getting to a place where there's not much more place to run. So what happened in a session recently is that, like, she's been making we're making progress, but it's very slow. And because she's kind of a fast learner and a fast doer, her adaptive strategies are very much like veering on getting stuff done. When you look at people, you'll see like their different strategies of coping. And if it's not food, alcohol, the things, it's going to be things like getting lost in fantasy and like books or things like that, or it's going to be hyper productivity or things like that. And if they're not doing over exercise, you might see hyper productivity and getting lots done and all that. That frustration and some of that perfectionism is getting put in her recovery pace, and her frustration being built. So you can imagine in our role with the food and relationship with body, that's going to be really difficult for her to tolerate a slower pace with things, because that's bumping up against her adaptive strategy. So it's going to be tight, and it's almost like it's going to feel like a bind for them. Like, I don't want to go fully in my body, but I'm getting really irritated because things are moving so slow. So that's just the space she's at. So I, as much work as I've done, I still have some bits in there around like people who like are really irritable and have an edge, to be honest. And those are my clients that I struggle the most with. Doesn't matter whether they're binging, restricting, no matter what the behavior is, when there's an edge of like, I need something to happen, that triggers an old adaptive function in me. I'm pretty good with now, I can hang with it, but I feel like when that gets a little, and what happens, so here's a dynamic that starts to happen with me and a client like this. Again, it gets better and better and better, but, because she's a more complex person, for her the stakes feel higher and bigger, and wanting something to happen because she's just getting really worn down, honestly, with trying to like have this fight between I want to push forward, but I can't, so here's me in the middle, basically trying to give containment to both sides. It's a lot, so it can feel like a lot in session. These sessions can be kind of intense, and if you're feeling overwhelmed, you definitely need to get yourself in supervision ASAP. I'm in it, so it wasn't an issue of like, oh my gosh, I gotta fix this. It's like, well, I'll talk about the next session with my person. And what came up really is just, sometimes it's as simple as it is. It's like, get yourself grounded again. Get yourself grounded again. Find your feet. Find the back of the chair for yourself. Find what you're sitting on. And recognize that it's not your responsibility to make things go any faster than the slowest parts of them can go. And it's, it's one of those things that I'm really on her side. And I know that, there is like it's a both and. At least I feel like it's a both and of, we can't really be attached to like them getting better. It's not fully our responsibility, but I care a lot. I totally care a lot. I'm on their side, and I want this for her pretty badly, for her to have more freedom, for her to have more variety of food, for her to have more food, and she wants that. And so I'm kind of in there fighting with her, and it's this fight of, can I soften? Can I help you soften? It's almost like, can we see that fight energy first and not run away from it? And most of us who are fairly, honestly, compassionate people, not everybody here, I'm not speaking for everybody, but some of us, including me, fight is not my home note. In terms of like strategies to deal with a situation, fight is not my home note. It's really like one drop in with compassion, and if that's not working, I might veer towards an adaptive strategy to talk more or fix things or do. My adaptive strategies are doing. But that's not going to work here. We need to hold space for somebody's fight. So it's my responsibility to be able to have capacity for somebody's anger and their fight. So, I've worked on that for probably 10 plus years, if not more. And it was just another reminder, like, I've got some more room to go. And once I recognized that, like, oh, yeah, I had to ground myself first. Oh, I can handle her fight. I've done this before. I had to be remembered, like, I've done this before. I can handle people's fight. It's not going to kill me. It's not personal. It's not like she's projecting at me. But it is my responsibility to be able to hold space for her fight and actually acknowledge, yeah, I'm so glad you can show that fight energy. That saved your life so many times. And then progress in the session from there. So I hope this video was helpful about how important, me being able to do that in the next session with her, it didn't like make a huge like breakthrough in her ability to eat more, but what it did, it gave her more to like, I can fight and not get in trouble. I can fight and people can handle it and not push back at me to stop. I can fight. And then somebody's there to like, what's underneath the fight is the sad or the scared or the vulnerable. And that's not going to be, I'm not going to be damaged or punished or hurt. She needed to be able to feel that. And then we were able to get to, and what do you want to shift with your food? And by the way, all this was body-based. I didn't talk about like her trauma history. There wasn't like a storyline with this. This was all like just body-based, and those little bit of language you just heard was all very much like a felt experience. So we did that, and then we were able to talk about the food. And that's the unpacking work that needs to happen. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about how you can do that kind of work, if you need supervision for that kind of work, let me know. But it's, for me, I don't know. I wouldn't be helping clients who've had this much go on in their lives and who are trying so hard to fight for life. This client and many more like it that I have are just, they're desperate. They want to have a full life. But there's just so much like stored up stuff that feels like it feels like out of reach for them. And if we can help them navigate that and have space for that, and just like one little bit at a time, build a little bit more safety, they're able to access the food. They're going to get better. And sometimes more quickly than you think. But if you've worked with people who have had this for a long time, they're kind of entrenched, or they're fighting or shutting down or whatever's happening in session, and it's like, whoa, what do I do here? Then work with me, some other person. You really, you will feel better. It's not just for them, it's going to be for you. And this work could be a lot more enlivening and pleasurable if you're not always stressed out, like, what am I going to do? And I've been there, which is why I'm encouraging you all to like, don't let those kind of sessions like collapse you, feel like you can't do this, or get you down. It's important just to get some perspective about like, well, what needs to shift in you for you to have more capacity for things like that. So anyway, I'm going to cut it off there. Hope this was really helpful, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care.